Okay, well, this is exciting. We've been talking about doing this for a little while, and obviously we've had conversations in the past, and our methodologies and things that we spoke about are very much aligned. So, Neelam, here we are. We're here to talk about a little bit of wellness in the corporate environment, health, fitness, some of the stuff that you do around breathing and yoga and that type of stuff. So, do you want to just give us a little bit of an introduction to who you are and what you do?
Thank you, Jeff. So happy to be here. It's always so nice to have conversations with like-minded individuals, especially when we're, really raising awareness and in different modalities. So, as you know, in terms of my experience and journey, it's kind of come full circle. So I used to be an investment banker. The pressure got to me and I burnt out in my 20s, suffering from chronic lower back pain, inflammation, gut issues, sleep issues, mood issues. And so in having that experience, I think that's really when the window of wellness really opened up to me, understanding how I can take more of a holistic approach to what health really means instead of just plodding along what does thriving look like. And it's almost come full circle where I'm back in these high pressure environments, but this time, talking about the importance of balance and sustainability in our energy. And I just love the work that you do in terms of that personal approach. There's no one size fits all when it comes to health, when it comes to well-being. So please, why don't you share how you take that personal approach into your work?
Well, I think one of the things that's most exciting about this from when we first met is that we've almost come from this from different directions, because I've obviously been in the health and fitness space for, close to 20 years now. And, I've come from the other way where I have my times where I felt burnt out in the past and that type of stuff. But I very much deal with and work with a lot of people who were in your position before, where you were working a lot, raising family, career driven, and you got to the point where you did burn out and, you've come the other side. So it's nice to kind of find that middle ground where we're having these conversations, because I feel like we've got all bases covered in terms of what we can talk about. But so I run a health and fitness business here in Dubai. I've been in Dubai for 13 years now. Set my business up, Movement Wins, 8 years ago.
Amazing.
And I came from a CrossFit background and very much high intensity. That's what I like to do. And I essentially took the ideas I learned in those environments and wanted to put my own spin on it and what I thought was important. One of the things was actually I just thought training was a little bit too much in some circumstances, and the type of people that we had coming in didn't necessarily need that much intensity in their workouts. They're already busy people, busy working, mums, dads, career driven. So they didn't need to be exposed to all of those high intensity workouts. So as much as we like to, build the intensity in those sessions, we also look at it from the other side as well, as making sure that they're getting enough, but not overdoing it as well. So naturally that will help people who are maybe dealing with injuries, who are maybe have less time to train. And I like to think of us as a very welcoming environment, which I think goes a long way in Dubai. I think there's plenty of places where you can go, throw your t-shirt off, heavy, loud music, which is great, military style kind of boot camps and stuff like that. And that very much suits people. But we like to come at it a slightly different approach. And we're finding that more and more people are kind of finding that as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I've had my wellness business for about 15 years now, starting in Hong Kong. Prior to that, I was in London, and expanding here in Dubai quite recently, only about 6 months now. But what I've seen is this intensity that people approach life with, whether it's work, that feeling that you're always on. And I see that where they also put the same intensity into their work and into their workouts, and so I've actually seen a lot of executives where they'll come to me after a cardiologist has recommended that they need to slow down or they need to balance, how do you see in terms of like that adrenaline of always on and going 100% in terms of work life and then work out? How do we find a balance then?
I think it comes around just having a little bit more understanding and exercise being there to support you through your health and fitness journey. Because I think a lot of people treat fitness, and whether they did sports or high intensity training when they were younger, as we get older, we just can't kind of sustain that level. So I think people like to go for this all-in approach, maybe like a New Year's resolution, or, you know, getting ready for a holiday where they kind of quote unquote turn the switch on and they go all in. Nutrition wise, they're cutting carbohydrates, cutting out alcohol, you know, all stuff that can be beneficial. But they're also going all in on their workouts, which essentially won't last, and they're going to end up burning out. So I think people need to understand that even if you're if you're going from doing 0 exercise to doing 2 sessions a week of maybe going and doing some weights or going for a run, that is a great start, and you can build on top of that. The trouble that I see is that, like I just said, people try to go all in. They'll go for 5 workouts in the first week, be super sore, and then obviously they've not fueled their body well enough as well, and then they end up burning out, getting tired, and then maybe not going for another month or 2.
Definitely. And I think, you know, when it comes to change and really a continued transformation, it's about that consistency, right? It's about that commitment. I know that that's something I studied when I was doing my wellness coaching at Harvard Medical School. It's about the 1%, right? It's about just adding a slight change to my diet or to my lifestyle, or as you said, even that sense of connection. So I look forward to coming and showing up. And that in itself starts to become a habit change. And once we create that habit change, it becomes a lifestyle. You know, what I really see as well in terms of the burnout, and I've seen it in myself, you know, typical A-type investment banker, derivatives trader, where you're just using willpower. You're just pushing as much as the throttle will let you go. And so I think also seeing that it's a marathon and not a sprint, right? We want to be able to have that continued progress rather than, you know, I've actually heard conversations where, I will go all in. I will change my diet, change my lifestyle, change my sleep, change my workout regime, get the 6-pack, take the picture, put it on Instagram, and then I'm done. I'm back to doing whatever I want to do, you know? And so how do we really make these lasting changes in terms of lifestyle?
But yeah, you've nailed a really important point there. That touches on, I think, one of the main issues of the expectations that people have as well. And that can be pushed out through social media. Like you just nailed it exactly. So I think what people assume they can do from going to the gym, I think sometimes the expectations is just a little bit too high. Maybe they're basing their goals on a young single fitness influencer who doesn't have a family, lives in the gym because they work in the gym, they're in the gym training all the time. They just can't match that same lifestyle. They might give it a go and maybe get so far, but I think just having more realistic expectations around that is important. And that's not to take anything away. Like you can get into really, really good shape, but you may have to have more conversations around having a conversation with your spouse, maybe letting your children know that you're prioritizing your health, that you might not be able to drop them off to sports, things like that as much. But again, it's just finding that balance because you can't just drop all of
everything, right? Yeah, it's like the all or nothing kind of paradigm. And eventually, you know, I think that's what causes those yo-yo diets. You know, I think the statistic is after 6 months after a diet, you're more likely to put on 2 kilos than when you began before, because you've just dropped it all and then ricocheted up again. So,
but I think one of the main things that I've learned as a coach over the years is having really honest conversations with people when they first come in. And that's something that we try to do when someone shows interest in joining us at the gym. Yes, we understand that people want to come and trial the environment, that type of stuff. But what my ideal would be is to get them down and sit and have a coffee with them or have a conversation and really kind of open up to find out what it is that they're looking for. Because more often than not, that's an opportunity for me to set those realistic expectations then. So if they're coming in and they haven't trained for maybe 5 or 6 years because they've got a career, because they've had children, they might have this expectation of getting straight back to where they were. Whereas I can maybe build it in like, hey, we're going to start a couple of times a week, 3 times a week. We're going to build this in. Let's maybe start looking at some of the things outside of the gym that can make big improvements. Things like your sleep, things like getting more steps in, your hydration, all of those things are so important for building those lasting habits.
Yeah.
And also what happens then is it gets them to like what that baseline is. And that's what we're trying to get them to. They're doing nothing at the moment. Let's get them to a good baseline where they're coming consistently to the gym. They're eating good, whole, nourishing food. They're covering all the bases in terms of the lifestyle habits. And then once we've got that ingrained, then we can start to build in, okay, right, now you want to train for this competition. Now you want to do this challenge. Now you want to get a six pack. And then we can build that on top, knowing that they're going to go back to that baseline.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to see as a coach, and I still do see it, like there's no stopping it, is people come in so motivated. They start, you see them every day in the gym, and then 2 months later, they're cancelling their membership but through no fault of maybe us or just following that wave of willpower. I wanted to ask you something, Neelam, about what are you seeing in high-performing professionals right now? Being someone that obviously did that for a number of years, what are you seeing in your line of work now?
I feel like there is this environment where being busy is a badge of honor, this expectation that I'm always on, that I'm always answerable. And so, even when I'm doing my leadership coaching, I will help leadership create healthy boundaries, right? And create those, as you said, realistic expectations. Like if I don't reply in 5 minutes, it's okay. I can afford that, right? If I pause and I don't step in right away to firefight every crisis, in fact, I give much more agency to my team to problem solve and feel empowered. So it's that feeling of control. And so much of, the programs that I put together for corporates is creating a feeling of balance. How do we step in and really make that difference? And when do we find out when it's time to step back? When can we replenish ourselves? And so moderating that, obviously not every day is going to look the same. Things come up. So giving yourself that slack as well, right? That we can iterate, we can be forgiving to ourselves. And then the next day, okay, I couldn't get my 7 hours of sleep. I'll recommit the next day rather than fall off altogether, that it's all or nothing, right?
One of the things that we've like spoken a lot about is obviously how stress has changed over the last 5 to 10 years. And I know Jonathan Haidt, The Anxious Generation, highlights it from kind of like 2012, where smartphones were around, social media being so much more accessible.
Yeah.
But do you feel like the stress is high because of those things? Like they're just in our lives, right?
Yeah. I mean, before you would leave the office and you would leave the work in the office. It was governed by your environment, right? Now you're speaking or relaying with your client at the dinner table with your family. There's no environmental boundary anymore, which actually gives us so much more emphasis of needing to sculpt those boundaries for ourselves. Because we're always on, because it's so accessible, we feel that we're needing to answer everything. But unless and until we start drawing lines for and safeguarding our mental health, our own reserves, I've started to see that panic attacks ensue. Nervous breakdowns come about, or doctors will start asking me to speak to the executives around stress management. So, we've also been in this generation now where we've normalized being stressed. Who isn't stressed? So because it's so normalized, we almost numb ourselves to the signals that, hey, I need to change, or I need to switch gears here. And so the body has to scream louder, that unless a siren isn't on full alarm, I won't listen. I won't realize, because everyone is stressed. And so being stressed is normal. So, really trying to, as you said, enhance that awareness, increase that sensitivity to what is it that I need in order to find a balance and in order to really allow a sustainable performance.
I find that because of going back to the smartphones again, and everything is more convenient now, that even something as our diets not being as wholesome as maybe they were because of all the processed food, because of how easy it is to get food. To go onto a delivery app, it'll be there in 20 minutes, whatever you want.
Absolutely.
Like, all of those are factors that we didn't have to necessarily worry about before we had access to the smartphone. So they're little things that are changing, and obviously why we've been having these conversations about why stress might be building up and how we are trying to help combat that.
Absolutely. And you know this better than anyone. You know, our bodies were built evolutionarily in terms of the hunter-gatherer environment, right? Where we would go, where it would be dark and we would sleep. And when it is time to wake up, we would wake up in a sense of community. We would walk in order to forage for food. Now I'm in bed lying. It's 11 p.m., screen's blaring at me. I click one button and 10 minutes later, fast food is at my door, right? So even just seeing how quickly our environment and the paradigm has shifted in terms of convenience. And so we've gone leaps and bounds in terms of that technological advancement, but at what cost, right? The cost is, yes, there's less time, but actually what is happening to our health? What is happening to our physical health? What is happening to our emotional, our mental health when we're taking all of these shortcuts? Because we're short-circuiting our biology.
And looking at it from the other way as well, like, the convenience of it is purposeful from the people that are creating this, and it's only going to get more, and which is why I think these conversations are even more important now in what we're doing, because clever marketing, AI companies that are putting billions of dollars into making us more addicted to our phones, to social media, the slot machine thing where they're sending notifications to us. All of those things are purposeful to eventually, well, obviously social media now monetized, but eventually AI is ChatGPT, things like that are going to be monetized as well, which their main goal will be to keep us on there for longer. So it's only going to get worse. All of these convenient things are going to get even more convenient. So I think that's why it's even more important now that we have those, that we're trying to build those habits and cement those habits. And listen, I feel them every single day. Like, first thing I do in the morning is check my phone because it's next to my bed. But when I'm going through a good patch, I'll leave my phone out of the room. Like, I know the things I need to do. And maybe some people don't know that. So having these conversations is important because they make such a big difference.
100%. You know, it is. It's because we're in this environment where our attention is commoditized. There have been so many times where I'll reach for my phone to say, "Oh, I need to call my aunt. I have to tell her something about next week's dinner." I'll reach my phone, and then I've catapulted into a realm of notifications, messages, all these things that have just come about in this rabbit hole, and I've put my phone down. And I didn't even make that phone call. You know, our attention is just so commoditized because these alerts make us feel like they're urgent, right? And we're primed to want to zeroize our inbox. We want to clear away all of the unread messages. But in doing so, we lose our agency. We lose that intentionality. You know, I always say that even in F1 or, a race car, the faster the car is driving, the more important the brake becomes, right? And so the faster life is going and everything is on full speed, what have we done to our brake? It's so sacred, but have we ever paused to say, this pause is so important for me to refuel, to make sure that I'm directing safely?
And one of the things that I've really noticed as well is that pause for a lot of people, they might think that they're pausing. For example, when they finish a long day at the office or at work and they go home and the first thing they do is they sit on their phone for 30 minutes. That isn't necessarily putting the brake on, although it feels like that because there's still that constant awareness of things going on. with YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, TikTok, all of those things. This isn't even talking about kids now. This is adults. Obviously, teens is a different conversation, but that isn't necessarily filling your cup either. That's going to be adding to it. So then you're just constantly adding to this kind of sympathetic state.
Absolutely. And, you've hit the nail on the head in that stress, that dopamine rush, that cortisol, that's an addictive behavior, right? So I'm feeling that full charge at work where I'm always engaged, I'm always troubleshooting. And then I'm on my phone and I'm always swiping and there's something next and I'm hyper stimulated, right? And so that's why one of the things we're seeing, is a sense of chronic inflammation, is a sense of insomnia or restless sleep. Because how do we go from full alert, in a sense, like a crisis mode almost in terms of brain chemistry, to then rest and restoration? It doesn't happen. We need to see that it's a moderated scale. And so these conversations are so important to enhance that awareness of what does it mean to really pause? How do I ensure that when I'm filling my cup doesn't have holes, so everything is leaking and draining out anyway, that I'm really restoring and feeling that fullness in my vitality when I wake up in the morning.
Something that really helped me was thinking about your stress as that sliding scale. So you have parasympathetic, which is things where you're slowing your heart rate down, things that are going to help you to recover. And then your sympathetic, which is adding more stress, fight or flight type to the body. Yeah. So exercise is more stress, maybe stress at work, stress with family, that type of stuff. That's all taking you further down into that sympathetic state.
Absolutely.
And it's about pulling yourself and doing the things that are going to bring you back to that parasympathetic. So it doesn't need to be like ice baths and meditation and things like that. It simply sleeping enough, making sure that you're nourishing your body. Exercise can be parasympathetic as well if you're not overdoing it. It can help. But then obviously there's other factors as well that can bring you back. And I like to think of it as if you're someone who's going through and you're just constantly in that sympathetic state and maybe you're not getting enough sleep and you're getting through by drinking more caffeine and just, like you said at the start, just kind of grinding and getting through it. That's got a certain shelf life and it's eventually going to come crashing down if you don't put those things in place.
Absolutely. It's that intentionality, right? How am I going to pause? And so even with, whether it's my employee well-being workshops or the coaching that I do one-on-one, it's starting with the lowest hanging fruit. Like what feels easy to you? Okay, can you go for a walk? Maybe just 10 minutes, walk for 10 minutes after dinner. That's it. But the kicker is don't bring your phone, or don't listen to a podcast on double speed, because we're in this information age and acceleration, right? Where everything has to happen so quickly. And so allowing some space, even in our mind. A lot of even yoga philosophy says that the body and the mind are two sides of the same coin. So if there's stress in the body, using the body to release that, go for a run, let it go. Only then can you sit with stillness. Similarly, even with the mind, if there's so much going on, to say, okay, I'm going to now meditate, it's going to be so frustrating for you, right? So finding ways where you can take a time out for yourself that you enjoy, whether that's just sipping on a cup of tea, watching the sunset, going for a walk, but anything that you feel that is a low-hanging fruit, is something I can do and I can manage without that much willpower. And that starts to really shift that scale in terms of bringing that parasympathetic mode into action.
And what's really interesting about the examples that you just gave there is that you could easily use your phone for those. Go for a walk, use your phone.
Yes,
drink a tea, use your phone.
exactly.
But the whole point is, no, I understand that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, and I'll see it how I see it from my side as well. When do we know that someone is getting into burnout? Like, what are the signs that you're seeing from the people that you work with?
So what I'm starting to see is the first cue is sleep quality. They're waking up tired, exhausted before the day even begins. Or it's very hard for them to go to sleep. So as I said, the body might be exhausted, but if the mind is on overdrive, you might be laying in the most comfortable bed, but sleep doesn't come to you because the body and the mind have to be in sync, right? So it's about slowing down the mind and then also maybe accelerating that movement, because we're so sedentary most of the time. We're seated, we're still, and our minds are super fast, right? And if you think about it evolutionarily, our bodies were the ones taking more of the activity, and we were in observation of our environment, right? So there was much more stillness in the mind. So how we can change that polarity in terms of sleep quality, in terms of even how it affects your mood. I see that a lot in terms of team dynamics, even in terms of personal life, where you're just a little bit on edge. You can see that you quickly be cut off, that feeling of a little bit snappy, a little bit impatient. And of course, you're going to be impatient if everything is happening so fast internally, right? So that's why we slow down to cultivate the power of patience again. It's when we slow down that those ideas come. It's when we slow down that things fall into place much more effortlessly. But when we're trying to push and control, that's usually when we escalate the problems.
That's great. And from our side, we'll start to see our job as coaches. It's actually really easy to make someone work really hard. Like we can do that. There's no real skill in that when we're dealing with people one-to-one in our group environments and stuff as well. Obviously, when people come to the gym, generally they're quite motivated to get there and they're working towards goals, but they're not going to be motivated every day.
Yeah.
Some days they didn't get very good sleep. Some days they maybe had a busy weekend and, they've been drinking too much, or, they're not going to come into the gym full of energy sometimes. So as coaches, we also need to recognize that. And for example, like if we're helping people get stronger and we're starting to build the weights up heavier, maybe that's a day that they're not trying to push the weight because we know that that's just not ideal for that day. Likewise, if they come in a day where they've had 8 hours of sleep, they've fueled properly the day before, they're feeling good, their peers are around and they want to push it a little bit, that's also our job to be able to push them on as well, make sure they're doing it safely. But just finding that balance of helping people. And like you said in the beginning, there's no one size fits all. And I think that goes missing sometimes in the gym environment. It's almost like I've gone to the gym, I've done the workout, that's it. There's no other thinking that needs to be done, but there's a lot that needs to be done at the gym as well.
And I think that's so critical, where you as a coach can start to ascertain what that person's threshold is. Because each day, depending on their own body battery, it shifts, right? And so having that expert to be able to get them into a place of motivation, but where it's sustainable, right? So where do you feel people are initially motivated to start, and enter your gym?
So this is really interesting because I think it's shifted in the last couple of years because of things like, weight loss drugs, Ozempic, Mounjaro. Yes. I think the landscape has changed. And to be honest, as, you might think as like a gym owner, business owner in the fitness space, that might be like, a bit of an alarm bell ringing. But the thing is, I've never really set my business up to be kind of weight loss, fat loss driven. Everything we do is about building strength for like a lifetime of movement is what we say. So people are coming to us because they realize that they need to get stronger.
Yes.
Maybe they've never stepped foot in the gym before and done weights. Maybe they want to do it in the right environment, make sure they're doing it safely. So we've set up that environment where people can come down and do that. I think maybe the conversation was different 3 or 4 years ago. The main goal for people was weight loss. And it still will be for people. There'll be people that aren't taking weight loss drugs that are still, that is their primary goal. I think a lot of us know that isn't just what you do in the gym. The gym can be that catalyst that, right, I've started going to the gym now, I'm training 3 days a week. So now I'm going to start to improve my diet because I don't want to put all that hard work in the gym and then spoil it by, overeating, overindulging. So I think that is one of the initial ones. But I think I'm finding more that females in particular, 35, 40 plus who are coming maybe perimenopausal, menopausal, they're coming to us because it's out there now in the media, and a lot of people are talking about it. Doctors are talking about it, how important strength training is. And that is very different to just going and doing a high intensity class where you're doing a circuit where you're getting a really good sweat for 60 minutes. There's a little bit more methodology behind it. We encourage you to rest. We encourage you to reach fatigue when you're doing your sets, making sure that you're, doing movement safely, doing some of the big compound movements that you wouldn't maybe do in the gym on your own, deadlifts, back squats and stuff, which if you've never been shown before, you're not going to go into the gym and just do that. So I think, like I said, the landscape has shifted. There's more people that are coming and focusing on getting stronger, thinking about their future, what it's going to look like when they're in their 70s, in their 80s. A lot of research now on how strength training and exercise in general can help to prevent dementia as well. There's more and more research coming out. So I think people are being more mindful about that.
That's amazing. I mean, there's also lots of research that shows that the number one risk in terms of old age or even detrimental impact is fall risk. Right? And so if we're unable to really feel balanced and feeling strong in our musculature, then we're so much more susceptible to having like one little slip in the bathroom turns into a cracked hip, which turns into lack of mobility, which then causes lack of blood circulation. It's this compounding effect, right? And so I think even when it comes to well-being, such a strong motivator is how do we want to live when we're 70? And so if we want to live strong, independent, active lives, that starts in our 40s. It starts now. We can't be at 69 and think, okay, now I'm going to start the gym, right? It's all about that compounding impact.
And one of my biggest concerns, and people might think it comes from, because he's a fitness guy, this is what he's saying. But one of my biggest concerns is that people who are losing a lot of weight now because they're taking weight loss drugs, which is great. I've got plenty of people that I know who have benefited from that, and I'm not against it.
Yeah.
I think there's loads of benefits to it, especially preventing heart disease, all of those things. But if people weren't motivated to go to the gym and start training maybe when they were heavier, and then they're going to lose the weight and they're not going to come to the gym now, I just worry what that looks like for the future, because essentially they're going to lose a lot of muscle alongside the fat that they're losing. So they're already kind of in a position where strength training is a priority. And I've worked with companies who are prescribing this stuff, and they're very much on the front foot in terms of recommending, hey, this is great that you're doing this, but you need to make sure that you're getting to the gym and strength training as well.
Absolutely.
I just worry that our people going to the gym, like they've lost the weight now, they're looking and feeling great, friends are commenting, they can fit into dresses they couldn't before.
Yes.
But are they thinking about future-proofing themselves as well and bulletproofing their bodies?
Absolutely. And you're right. There are studies now that have come out about the increased risk of sarcopenia and osteoporosis because the bones don't have enough protection in terms of carrying the weight from the muscles. Because when you think weight loss, muscle is 5 times heavier than fat. And so maybe you're dropping on the scales, but again, at what cost, right? At the cost that you're less strong, or that your bones are now more exposed, or feeling more brittle. And that's, again, it's that long-term thinking, right? Doing the hard stuff now for the rewards that will keep paying us dividends in the future. And that's definitely a theme that I've been seeing and really kind of honing in here in Dubai, this external validation, right? Okay, as long as I can fit into this dress, as long as I can flash this car, but what is our internal environment, right? If all we're doing is we're seeking approval externally, then actually when we're sitting by ourselves, it's very hard to sit with ourselves because there's this feeling of emptiness. I'm always comparing. And when I'm comparing, I'm usually comparing upward, someone who's even better looking, someone who's even more successful, someone who's got an even bigger house, all of that leaving me feeling a little bit empty, a lack of. So, creating those emotional spaces in terms of that social element, the emotional intelligence to say, how can I change this? How can I really connect with an internal validation? And that really comes back to human-centric values, right? Where we can connect on a level of compassion, where we can feel a sense of gratitude. Wow, I'm up at 6 a.m. and I'm taking the kids and we're going for a walk. I have so much to be thankful for right now, And I think when we're able to kind of engineer our habits from that positive lens, those habits are so much stickier because they're connected to that feel-good feeling, right? Yeah.
I'd love to know more about, especially because of your background in the corporate space, how do you see, because I think corporate wellness gets thrown around quite a lot. How are you making an impact? Like, what are you seeing is making a change? Because like I've done it before where I've gone in and done a talk, and I mentioned to you before that, a PT, I think I was 26, going in and standing in front of a room of 30 people telling them to eat more protein and exercise 5 days a week. Like that's not going to go very far at all. So how can we make an impact on that corporate wellness space? Because we've already talked about why it could be more important now than ever that we make those changes. What are you finding?
That's a great question, and I feel honestly, when it comes to well-being, it's not rocket science, right? We all know fruits and vegetables are good for us. We all know eat whole foods. We all know drink more water. But what is startling is the gap in our knowledge and our actions. So creating a bridge, and making sure there's awareness, not just on what is optimal, but what is achievable, what is attainable, and what is sustainable. So I really like kind of addressing it with an experience. So as you said, just start with a 1%. Okay, let's swap out those M&Ms for dark chocolate. Just small changes. But again, not coming from this place of deprivation, right? I still want to feel a sense of vitality rather than I'm dragging myself. This is one more thing on my task list. I have to do my 20,000 steps. Otherwise, I can't go to sleep. And you're then adding more stress because your to-do list is just growing, right? So I think creating micro learnings has become really well adopted, where people are starting to experience, hey, yeah, I can do this 2-minute breathing exercise, and all of a sudden, I'm not worried about the meeting next week. I'm just being here. I'm being present. So we really like to get as much of an immersive learning environment as possible. Get them out of their comfort zone. Whether it's small movements, whether it's challenges, creating a sense of accountability so that it becomes a corporate culture shift rather than this perk. Like, okay, everyone, let's just do a walk in the park. Great, high five, everyone's happy. Next month, nobody knows, nobody knows any different, right? So how can we create these sustainable changes that brings that sense of accountability, that brings a sense of change management? So we'll have agents in the company where they're spearheading, okay, we're gonna all come together and order this meal for lunch, and let's have a shared lunch, and we're being a bit more mindful about our macronutrients, about the micronutrients, but creating, as you said, that distinguished impact of social connection, because there's as we're so interconnected with our social media and technology, loneliness has only gone one way, and that's up. And I think the U.S. Surgeon General has said loneliness is as detrimental as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow.
And so let's take much more of an integrated, much more of a holistic approach and start just moving that needle forward. In terms of, if somebody comes to you and say, okay, for example, one of the things that was really difficult for me was even working out when I was depleted. I had no energy after, being on the training floor for 13 hours, then to drag myself to a gym where my back was already killing me. I was super exhausted, low mood. How do you get someone from that almost negative state to then thriving?
I think a lot of it comes down to changing that gym environment to something that someone is maybe apprehensive of. They've got this feeling of anxiety that they're going to go and be pushed and that type of stuff. I think if we can change the mindset around that I'm going to the gym to help me, to do some exercises that are going to help to maybe relieve your back pain, to essentially to add rather than take away from your environment. And that's what I was saying about, there's plenty of gyms, military style boot camps, things like that, where you can go, where you can go and do really tough workouts. And don't get me wrong, a lot of people like that and it suits their lifestyle. But the trouble is that a lot of people think that's exercise, that's the only thing. But there's plenty of gyms, plenty of great coaches out there who are maybe going to ask how you slept when you first came in, which might feel strange to start with. Why is my coach asking how I slept? Because we're thinking more holistically about it.
Absolutely.
How much water have you drank today? Have you eaten before you've done your workout? You're a bit lightheaded last time you worked out. Did you eat anything for breakfast? So it's laying those things out. So I think it's never going to be perfect. The gym is always going to be somewhere because you're going there to push, right? You're going there to improve, make adaptations, stress the body to an extent. So it's never going to be, you're not going to go there to relax. It's not a yoga class or a meditation class. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be this like crazy fitness workout every single time.
That middle ground is so critical, right? I think it's also great because, what I'm hearing is that you're not only managing the physical well-being, you're managing energy optimization. You're seeing it from so many different lenses and seeing, okay, how much energy does this person have? And so let's plan a workout based on that. So they leave feeling a sense of accomplishment, but not completely depleted as well, right? So that they keep coming back.
And one of the things that we really try to do is, I enjoy exercise. I always have. Like, I love exercise. I love going to the gym. I love doing hard workouts. And, my coaches that work with me as well, like, very similar. But what I've learned over the years of doing this is that not everybody loves the gym, like, newsflash. So if we can tie in that gym experience to other things, making connections, making friends, maybe people who are in a similar position to you, they have children at the same school. If we can make those connections, we find that really powerful because it just adds as a little bit of a sticking point for them to, keep coming back to the gym. So even on the days where maybe they're not feeling 100%, but they agree to the person that they met, that their friend, that they're going to make it there. Like, they're not coming for the gym, they're coming to see that friend and they're getting that added benefit of doing the workout, even if they weren't feeling good. And everybody leaves the gym feeling good. But getting to the gym is a different story. So if we can do those little things that are going to help, people get to the gym, and even things like, now Dubai with traffic and those types of things. I remember like old Joff as a coach would, young Joff would punish people for being late. Don't get me wrong, like, it's not ideal when people come late for a class, but I remember I used to try and embarrass people. They would come 5 minutes late and maybe they've done everything they can to get to the gym. They've had a 10-hour, 11-hour shift. Kids are sick. They've had a busy day at work. They come in and there's 25-year-old Joff saying, you have to do 50 burpees before you can join the class. So I've learned a lot through that process. And it's like, I like to say, like, well done for making it to the gym. Amazing. Like, you've got yourself here. Make sure you warm up and do all of that stuff and then come and join in. So I don't know, like, I talk about creating a welcoming environment, and we do our utmost to do that. I know a lot of gyms and a lot of communities will say the same, but we do generally try to preach that.
Yeah, no, it's so great. It's very clear that that community spirit is really what galvanizes people and keeps them coming back. Similarly with that accountability buddy, if I've said, okay, I'm going to do 10 minutes of walking after dinner, and I know the guy next to me is going to ask me tomorrow morning if I've done it, I will definitely be much more inclined to do it because I know somebody's holding me accountable. So similarly in the gym, if you've got a friend who's like, yep, I'll meet you at 7:00, automatically you're more hardwired to show up, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's such a great idea if you're someone who doesn't love exercise to outsource your accountability. Now, don't get me wrong, there's amazing gyms out there that you can pay a couple of $100 a month. But you've got to understand that a lot of these gyms are set up because they know that you're going to sign up. They'll tie you in for a year.
Yeah.
They know that you're not going to come to the gym, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So if you can outsource your accountability, that maybe you do pay a little bit more of a premium to go and join a class or to, join a gym where you're going to be more inclined to go.
Yes.
One, because you've probably paid more for it, so you don't want to waste your money.
Yeah.
But two, I always think a class environment is great because, listen, I train on my own a lot of the time. And if I go into the gym, someone who loves training, knows what they're doing, like there's nothing that can stop me. I'll go in and maybe get 20 minutes into my workout and I'll be like, I've got a couple of emails to send, and I'll start convincing myself. And if I get 30 minutes, I'm like, that's a win. And then I leave. But if you go to a class,
you have to
the
stick
workout
it through
is
the
there,
hour.
it's set. I don't think I've ever had anybody walk out of a class before. So, you're there, and even if it's a bit of a drag for you that day to get through the workout, you're going to finish it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're in the gym on your own, you've got music in and stuff, but there's always someone that's going to kind of pull you away as well.
Yeah. And I think even leaving with that sense of achievement is what brings you back. When you do it yourself, maybe you leave with a feeling of despondence, like, I didn't really, nothing really happened. And so then you're not really coming back because that anchor of achievement isn't there, right? And, even just coming to your point about how you used to train and coach more aggressively. Like, I've seen this so much even in leadership, and I've seen a shift in the whole team when the leader leads with compassion, right? Where I will lean in to listen before I start putting my judgment on the situation. And then there's a sense of trust that, hey, he was so understanding. I don't want to be late to his class. I will show up because you've got that trust and you want the best for that person. And so the other person also wants to do the best by you as well. And so I think when we're able to kind of reframe how we're leading, how we're conducting our personal relationships, generally when we're softer and we're kinder, that's what's met as well. That's what's reflected. And so the whole relationship, even in terms of office dynamics, moves from like toxicity to supportive very quickly.
But also, just on that point as well, yes, we create that welcoming environment, but we don't want it to be confused with somewhere that's easy to come and train. But that's what I'm saying. With the environment that we've got set up, with our experienced coaches that we have, we know when to push someone as well. So if we've had someone who's been coming consistently for maybe 3 months, and we know that they're locked into their training, they're locked into nutrition and some of the lifestyle habits as well. Okay, we may push you a little bit when you're doing your intervals. We may try and push you on the weight a little bit, but there's a little bit of a system behind it.
Yes, of course.
A system that is built on coaching experience.
Yeah, 100%. And I see this even in corporate wellness and employee well-being. People want to be pushed. A big motivator is growth. And if I'm not growing in my role, or if I'm not growing through my actions, then I will quickly disengage. And that's what we see even in terms of the corporate environment with global engagement only at 31%. And I think here in the UAE, it's about 20%. So being able to find that threshold where there's a safety and yet, we're pushing ourselves in terms of really seeing that growth and really seeing that progress.
How about something that I've heard you speak about before, stress and burnout around your family life and your personal life? What are you seeing people struggling with there?
When it comes to, family life, it's unfortunately, it's almost whatever's left over of the day that is given to the family, right? So if I've had a hard day, if I've had back-to-back meetings, I I want to just lock myself in the room and not really deal, right? So it's not so cut and dry in that sense. It's really about how we can systematically change our energy levels throughout the day so that our priority is our family, right? We're in our careers, we're doing so well so that we can provide for our family. And yet, ironically, they probably get the least of our enthusiasm and excitement and energy because we've just spent it all at work. So I think this really kind of comes back down to how we draw those healthy boundaries, right? So having that intentionality that this is important to me. So when I'm leaving the office, I will check out, and I won't look at my phone until 8:30, until the kids' bedtime. And then I have a sense of accountability. If anything's urgent, I'll take a look at it before I switch off for the night, But it's sculpting our time. We can't change the number of hours in our day. So it's really, how do we change the attention and the priority of the roles that we have? Something that I've started to instill as a family rule is no phones on the table. So, because immediately the moment I have my phone on the table, what is that signaling to my son or my daughter? The moment this vibrates or buzzes or some call comes, I will pick it up. So this is more important to me than you guys, right? So really, as I said, like the power of patience, but also the power of presence. When it comes to family life, it's not, a balanced life doesn't mean that, okay, we have to split our time. The same amount of hours I spend in the office, I need to spend with the family, then I'll have no time to sleep or any of that, right? It's the quality. If I've got 2 hours with the kids, can I be fully present with them? Can I sit down on the floor and build Lego with them? Can I connect with them on things that they're interested about and really create that rapport? Because that's how kids learn love, right? It's mirrored from their parents. And so even what I say is, if you want to exhibit love to your child, talk to them about what interests them rather than what interests you, and that will again bring about a greater kind of feeling of connection. But this all takes intention. This all takes that awareness that, hey, these are my responsibilities. I only have these number of years to really shape my child and, have this childhood, have them. We'll rewind this, but I only have X number of years to be able to influence my child during childhood. So to be more intentional, to prioritize that role, because we're also in a very convenient city, in a very easily accessible side of the world where this can be outsourced. Right? And so, okay, as long as their kids are happy and they've gone to the playground and they've been fed, my role is done. But what about connection?
Yeah.